How's it going, everyone? My name is Falling Hurts, and today we actually have some new information and actually gameplay of the day before. Now, I promised myself a long time ago, after making quite a few the day before videos, probably 3 or 4, that I was going to be done with the game until there was more to show. Now, since then, there's actually been a lot of controversy about the fact that the game has been delayed. Is the game real? Is it a scam? Which, quite frankly, I don't see how the game can be a scam if they're not selling anything. So, you know, if you're hyped, that's on you, man. Honestly, just, it is what it is. But for those who don't know, The Day Before is a mainly third-person, open-world survival MMO from Fantastic Games, and it's being published by Mytoma. Mytona? Sounds like a cancer if I say Mytoma. Anyway, the game was supposed to come out actually pretty soon, but due to some legal controversies where someone supposedly took over the copyright, they didn't lock down the copyright for the game or the title of the game somehow. So I don't know if that means that either they get to keep the name and they're going to have to change it, or whether they actually dealt with it. But regardless, it pretty much brought the game into everyone's attention once again, and everyone seemed to call it fake and whatnot. But the main thing to take away was that the game was, and always was, going to be delayed until November 10th, 2023. So still this year. But considering the fact that we've seen so little gameplay, and the fact that they were so radio silent up until that point, a lot of people were throwing up knives and pitchforks and everything else. Now, one thing that I do have to say, having followed the kind of press of this game very closely, Fantastic specifically, I really just don't, I think the developers are just out of touch. I really do. I mean, the game, speaks for itself in a way of like, is it real, is it not? One thing I've got to say is that IGN and NVIDIA both have become almost kind of partners with, first looks, and also NVIDIA kind of showcase things with the RTX capabilities of the game, which are cool. And honestly, I got to say, how is this game getting 2 partnerships with media as well as one of the biggest hardware manufacturers if there wasn't something to the game? So that from the beginning has always given me some form of confidence in the game, but that's not what you're here about today. You're not here to catch up on the controversies. You're here to talk about the new gameplay for The Day Before. And to start off right off the bat, it's about 10 minutes long, and nothing from this gameplay is specifically new. But I think what it does here, if everything is to be believed and completely undoctored, it does a very great job of showing what everyone actually needs to see. 10 minutes of real gameplay. Now, watching initially off the bat, you'll see that the survivor that the player is playing as is a female character. She's double-cheeked up on a Tuesday afternoon, and she's going through what looks like the suburbs of the city. Now, you may recall from my previous videos, if you have actually seen them, and that's why you've subscribed to this channel, that there is going to be a big metropolitan city that the game takes place in, as well as the outskirts around the sides of the city. So you're going to get farmlands and different terrains and things like that, as well as some snowy, almost mountain-looking environments. Now, for the sake of watching this video, it seems that the character is moving around during the sunset and with one other player with them. Not saying that it's necessarily like there are teams in the game, but you can obviously clearly interact with other survivors in a way that's not entirely negative, much like any other survival MMO. One thing to note is that the game is kind of stuttery, which, great. Every other gameplay for this game up until this point, I'm not saying it's been without issue or fault, but it's nice to see that there is things that would be normal from showing a game that is supposedly so many months out. To me, that gives me not a full-form confidence, but I do want to say that I think that the gameplay in this could have been more. I think that there could have been more extensive things shown, but overall, I think that this gameplay does a good job of showing what the state of the game is. And visually, I don't think the game looks terrible. I think the compression on YouTube wasn't amazing. I don't think they did a great job with that, but that really just kind of blurs the resolution almost. Regardless, we see the game running, and as we see the player walking along there, we see them go into this house, where we actually get our first, I believe, first full look at the crafting of the game, or at least the weapon customization, kind of in the similar vein to The Last of Us, where you go to a workbench. But pretty much as we go into this crafting table, we see quite a few different things. First off, we get a good look at the HUD and, of course, the UI in the crafting menus. We see that there is a carry weight meter as well as a number of slots that you have. For instance, the character has 27 slots of their inventory used out of 42 available. Now, probably depending on which pack you have equipped, that goes up. That's the usual survival game kind of thing. Now, as for crafting itself, it seems like we have a couple different materials. But one thing I am noticing as I'm looking at this is it really does seem like there's only 3 kind of crafting materials in the game. So it's not a super in-depth crafting mechanic. Like, for instance, it seems that there's like the basic, kind of like screws and different things like that, as well as these two other resources here. I'm not really sure what to call them, but they literally make everything from bandages to 9mm ammo to 7.62mm ammo, and handmade flash grenades, handmade frag grenades, and Molotov cocktails. Now, some don't even use both of the crafting ingredients, and that's okay. I mean, it would be kind of weird if you needed screws and stuff for bandages, but that's just how it is. But ultimately, it seems like a super light crafting system, and that's something I'm okay with, because there isn't really full-on building in this game in any means, so it's perfectly fine that ammo, healing, and throwables and consumables are really your only other options. And of course, the way that the player is able to achieve this with some of the ingredients missing is they are able to dismantle things in their inventory. For instance, the old radio and the Zippo lighter. But for a gun of the size shown on the screen here, we have a few different things that we can customize. We've got the receiver, the handguard, as well as the muzzle, the magazine, the grip, which for whatever reason says pistol grip here, that's kind of weird, and then also, of course, the buttstock. So it's pretty standard overall, but I don't know, I can't help but thinking that, you know, with a lot of customization and a lot of different things, whether it be suppressors or, you know, different sights and things like that, this could go a long way as far as customization, and especially as it shows in the trailer a little bit later that you can actually shoot in first person. So that customization, you know, even when it comes to sights, it's still super relevant what you choose and what your preferences are as a player. That is all we get from that kind of crafting table, but as we move on, I kind of want to emphasize the audio design here, while not amazing, still sounds pretty good. The attention to detail on what surface the character is walking on, from the wooden floors to the glass under the foot, all the way out to the stone as you walk outside, is all unique and varied, and that's all within a 10-second clip. Now, as for gameplay, we do get to see a little bit more of the, you know, just hold down to actually search for things, and then it opens an inventory screen. Nothing we haven't seen before, so that's fine. I actually like this system in games where it takes a second rather than just opening instantly, and that's something that I really didn't like in Ark, but when it came to base building, it made absolute sense in that game as well. Now that we're actually stepping outside, the game is darker outside, and it seems to be moonlit, and that actually looks pretty good as well. Not to be completely a dick sucker for this game by any means, because there are some things that I'm going to criticize here. The gun flashes, or like the muzzle flash with the suppressor on it, do not look good at all, because as we round the corner, there are some zombies. You know, they're fine. You know, the sounds of the zombies are fine, everything like that. And even the physics of like shooting them is better. In the initial gameplay trailers that we saw a while ago, whoever was aiming was absolutely terrible. Another reason why people thought the game just wasn't real was because it was just like very bad. But now, I mean, it looks a little better. I'm not saying the player's skill by any means. I'm saying like the shooting overall looks fine still with the physics, but the muzzle flashes aren't looking too good. And then as we get some, you know, wide pan shots at the dilapidated city, you see that some lights are still on, so there must be some electricity. And that is especially true as you walk into the KFC or whatever crispy chicken place it is. And the player wants to disable the alarm, and we actually get a very light puzzle here. And I'm saying very light because it's something that you'd probably even see in Resident Evil. And that's where you're looking at a keypad on a lock, and you can see which ones have been worn down over time by the buttons pressed. So the player is basically guessing what order that the buttons they need to press are to disable the alarm, and eventually they get it and it turns it off and it's all well and fine. And honestly, that was cool. Like, that's a cool little bit of gameplay that isn't, you know, necessary in a game like this, but it definitely adds a little bit of the factor. So when people are saying, that doesn't look good, I disagree. I mean, it's just a nice little thing that you can completely ignore if you want to, and most players probably will. I'd like to see if maybe you could have shot it. That would have been cool as well. Then continuing on, we see a little bit of stealth gameplay, which really isn't stealth gameplay. The two players we see basically turn off their flashlights on their guns and crouch down to break line of sight from a group of zombies, but honestly they're so far away that even in most games, like I literally mean most stealth games, I don't think the AI would pick them up from that far away as it is. So I don't really know if that's a good indication, but as they move through the next building and they step back outside, there is another zombie that both players shoot at for some reason. And while the main character that we see has a suppressor on their gun, the other character does not. So that actually draws some zombies from far away for the sake of things, down the alleyway. And you hear them, you know, kind of aggro and start coming at the players. And it's a little shooting range. Really fun. However, my issue is that we just saw that group of zombies not even a whole block away. Now, while they may not be able to instantly find where we're at, I don't like the idea that this one player was shooting with a completely unsuppressed weapon, and even zombies from a block away are just going to completely ignore it. I don't like that, and, if for whatever reason maybe their hearing radius is increased, I would prefer that. And then, of course, shooting zombies. I keep wanting to call them walkers. I'm currently watching The Walking Dead, so I can finally just be done with that show. But anyways, shooting zombies is actually super tiring. And as the player opens their inventory, we see that there is both an energy bar as well as a thirst bar. So the player, of course, to handle things, drinks a little good old slippy juice and calls it good, right? Well, as they open the inventory in a few seconds, we see that the numbers have already went from 50 to 56 and 70 to 71. Nothing crazy. I'm sure it's an overtime kind of thing that it regenerates. It's really nothing crazy, but I like the idea of kind of a survival light mechanic, which that's also something that if The Last of Us ever did go semi-truly open world, that's what I would like to see in there as well. If we're going to be able to go around a large environment with free will, I want to be able to eat and drink and that impact my character in some way, but I don't want it bearing down on me like Ark Survival Evolved, a game I keep hating on, but I love that game truly. Or something like Rust, even though Rust was kind of light with it as well. The players eventually make their way towards the police station, which on their way there, we actually see a few interesting things. Once again, a big part of the world design that originally drew me to this game was the spoofs of American, or at least other brands, like CBVS with the very distinct red logo. It's really cool, as the game is set to take place in America, though it's by Russian devs, if I'm remembering correctly. So you can tell that they did their homework at least enough to tell what they could be parodying. But also on the way there, we get to see the wide open square shot of some of the bigger skyscrapers, as well as the open kind of park area, which I gotta say, it feels a little dead. And I don't mean that like, oh, it's the undead, it's the zombies. No, I mean like there's no zombies or anyone around, which is fine if they're going for the lesser zombie approach. That is cool. I really do enjoy the fact that it's not the main threat. The main threat are the players. It really they need to show out a little more than what they did in this gameplay, in my opinion. As we move into this final section of gameplay, really the only thing I'm noticing as we kind of deal with some zombies throughout the hallways is that while the actual shooting and impact is kind of light, I do like that it seemingly indicates that a headshot will drop a zombie on impact. Another thing that I'm not too big on is that the blood and gore effects are really toned down. It really just seems like there's a little bit on the ground where they actually die, but I would like to see a little bit of maybe even dismemberment. I don't know if that's too out of the picture. One thing we didn't really see in this trailer is the PvP gameplay, which I would like to see more of before the game comes out, ideally. But in the extended gameplay that we saw a while ago, we saw that there are vehicles. I mean, obviously we knew there were vehicles, but offensive vehicles to some degree with the tank-like device, as well as things like combat finishers, which are something that you'd see in like Apex or Call of Duty, which is something mid-gameplay that you can finish off a downed player. Now, as for respawning, we don't know anything like that. I would love to see hardcore servers that you get banned from if you ever die. I think that would be really cool. But honestly, for now, that's it. If you want to know all the finer details on The Day Before, I'll have those videos linked down below. Back in the day, I went over all the details, whether it be the size of the developer or some of the off-kilter things they've said in random interviews that aren't featured on IGN, as well as all the key details I could comb through. Now, that's it for me today. My name is Falling Hertz, and if you like this style of video, I'm actually covering quite a few games, and I'm trying to narrow in what games people are interested in, so if you'd like to see me cover a certain game, consider subscribing and let me know down below in the comments. Thanks for watching, and yeah, we're coming up on 1,000 subscribers, so yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, consider subscribing, and thanks for watching. Bye.